Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everybody to Chilling with Scripture, a place where we contemplate the message of the Quran and ponder and reflect over its message. I hope that you are having a fantastic day and all of you are staying safe and secure and all of you are taking very good care of yourselves. May God Almighty be with all of you, and may He grant you peace and mercy and serenity and tranquility in your lives, and may He join you with your loved ones in Jannah. Today, inshallah, I would like to speak with you concerning the Quran, and that is because I am planning to start a series of videos on the Quran, specifically on the interpretation of the Quran, in which I plan to go through the Quran using the Quran as a source to show you that it is in fact possible to understand the Quran using the Quran alone and not relying on any other source. Of course, there will be certain verses which require some outer knowledge. However, those verses are not necessary for guidance, and I will point those verses out for you, inshallah. But in this video, I would like to give a small introduction to the Quran, and in order that most people are caught up to date as far as the Quran is concerned. For those of you who do not know or who are watching, the Quran was in fact revealed to the Prophet Muhammad about 1,400 years ago in the deserts of Arabia, as that is what tradition tells us. We understand from tradition that the prophet became a prophet at the age of 40. At that time, he was belonging to a certain tribe called Quraysh, and it was the most popular of the different tribes that were around, and it was the strongest of the tribes. The prophet, at the age of 40, as he was contemplating and he was meditating in a cave, he was visited by the archangel Gabriel, who revealed to him certain messages, and after then revealed several other messages to him. This culminated in what we understand today as the Quran. By the time the Prophet died, the Quran remained in the memory of many Muslims, and they passed this memory down from generation to generation to what we have today. When you go to the Muslim world, you would find that they are using a completely different calendar. That is because 13 years after the Prophet was living in this city called Mecca, he was persecuted by his enemies, and then he had to leave. So he turned to a different city called Yathrib, that is north of Mecca, and from there he launched his own campaigns and basically became victorious over his enemies after 10 years. So that is a simplified form of Islamic literature, but I think those were the main points when it comes to Islamic history. Now, of course, there are certain details which are not actually correct when it comes to the Islamic history, because much of Islamic history was written very much after the fact, and so not a lot of it can be relied upon. However, we do have the Quran, and the Quran is in fact a seerah, that is a life story of the prophetic mission of Muhammad ibn Abdullah, that is Muhammad, the son of Abdullah. So within the Quran, unlike what most people think, that the Quran, for me, I see it as the footsteps of the prophet. The Quran is the seerah of the prophetic mission of the prophet. And so it's very important that one gets in touch with the Quran and understand how it is that the Prophet conducted his mission. The Quran is the only attestation that we have to the Prophet's mission. Any outside source of Islam is much after the fact, and therefore does lend itself to criticism, and therefore can be considered a little bit untrustworthy. But as far as the Quran is concerned, I can say that the Quran is a trustworthy document when one seeks to understand the 7th century, a time in which the Prophet Muhammad lived. Now, from tradition, we understand that the Prophet became prophet at the age of 40, as I mentioned, and that in this year, which would coincide with 610 of the Christian era, of current era, this is when the prophet became a prophet. This is when Muhammad became a prophet and he was called to messengership. And so from that day on, he was a prophet for 23 years, as far as tradition tells us. And he had his challenges, and those challenges are mentioned within the Quran. So from that, one can build upon this by just simply looking at the Quran. One can reach almost such an understanding by simply relying on the Quran alone, and I don't think that one really needs this extra material or this extra history that I just gave you about the Prophet. One can in fact glean this kind of understanding from the Quran when one examines its verses. So the Quran was the revelation of Muhammad, and of course it is in Arabic, as Muhammad himself was an Arab. The Quran is divided into 114 chapters and over 6,000 verses. Its chapters, of course, range from the shortest to the longest, where you have the longest at the beginning and the shortest at the end. Although this is not always so throughout the Quran, there are certain shorter chapters which appear before than the longer ones which appear after. So it's not always consistent in terms of the length of the chapters, but this is how it is generally understood by many. For those who do not know, there are actually several readings of the Quran. Although this is an issue in of itself, the Quran is not in one recitation or one version. There are several readings of the Quran where you have certain variants and differences between manuscripts. You have variants that deal with both vocabulary and also grammar, but these variants are not too significant. I would say they're not too significant, but they are there, the differences, and they have been documented and understood by several Muslim scholars throughout Muslim history. There are more, of course, that are documented within the Hadith books, but these are not relevant to my discussion, as I am only interested in what we have today. I cannot speak for as to what was before, but I can speak to what we have right now and currently with us. Currently with us, we have several readings of the Quran, and when one compares these readings to each other, there are about 1,300 or so variants between these readings, and these variants in most cases are not significant. They really don't alter the message of the Quran at all. They don't alter the overall message. They don't alter the overall context of the Quran. They do in certain cases alter certain words, but the overall message of the word, the overall message of the verses are intact. As I said, this is an issue in of itself, and as such, I will not be mentioning it in this video, but rest assured that I will in fact make a video talking about this issue. Now, when it comes to the Quran has been misunderstood. To use a more common term, it has been misunderstood by several people who claim to be Muslims and people who claim to follow the religion of Islam, yet we see that their actions do not reflect what the message of the Quran is. And that is because there is a major disconnect from the Quran and how people practice their deen today. The Quran calls for values such as justice and fairness and equality, but these are values that unfortunately are lacking, especially within the Muslim world. When one notices where are the most atrocities committed against humanity, one would find that they are in those places where Islam reigns supreme. So then one would ask, is it because there is something wrong with Islam, or is it because there is something wrong with the people? Where is the mistake? And I would contend here and say, well, the mistake is in the interpretation of the verses. The mistake is that people have used other sources in order to understand the Quran. And as such, this has led to multiple atrocities being committed in the name of religion. Because people allow extra Quranic material to come in and influence the message of the Quran and take over the message of the Quran, in most cases actually dominate over the message of the Quran. This is why it has led to so many atrocities committed in the name of Islam. But when one examines the Quran, one cannot help but notice that there is a major disconnect between the way Islam is viewed by many people and the way Islam is viewed within the Quran. Today it's all about symbols, it's all about practices, it's all about dogma. These are the main issues that people discuss. They really don't talk about the core messages within the Quran. They don't talk about the values that are mentioned within the Quran. They might pass over them once in a while on their minbars, on their pulpits. They might mention a verse or two once in a while or here or there, but they don't really focus on these verses. They mainly focus on the practical aspects of the rituals or the practical aspects of the cultural understanding of the deen. And as such, these readings have led to so much atrocities and such decay or decline in Islamic thought. There has been some kind of intellectual stagnation that has happened because of these readings, because people have relied on them so dogmatically that they have completely cast aside the Quran and completely abandoned it. And this is in fact in line with what the Quran says when it tells the Prophet that the Prophet would complain to his Lord on the day of resurrection that his people have abandoned the Quran, or that they have taken the Quran as something abandoned. And that is what we see in our world today, unfortunately, that most people, when they approach the Quran, they influence it with outer sources that are coming from outside of the Quran, sources that infiltrated the Muslim thought in ancient times. So after the Prophet passed away, unfortunately, there were certain thoughts and certain practices and certain teachings that crept into Islamic thought, and these were adapted within the Muslim community. These were appropriated within the Muslim world, and these were they were confirmed by different scholars as though they had been there originally. And these have led to so much discourse in the Muslim world. These have led to so much atrocities and such subjugation of a certain group of people. And here I'm talking about people such as apostates or people of a different sexuality, or women, or so much atrocities that have been committed in the name of religion based on these teachings. And all of them hide behind the skirt of the Quran. All of them claim to be aided by the Quran. All of them claim to be supported by the message of the Quran, whereas they actually are not at all in line with what the Quran portrays. See, the Quran or any other sacred scripture, the main reason why Allah or God sent down several sacred scriptures to people was to establish justice and balance upon the earth. This was the main purpose for sending prophets and messengers and sending revelations. However, this is not what we find in places which are mainly dominant with religion. That's not what we find. We find the complete opposite. We find that when one applies religion, one cannot help but end up applying something that is completely totalitarian and something that is completely theocratic. Values such as democracy have been completely antagonized within the Muslim world. They're seen as something satanic by many, because free thought or human thought cannot exist alongside the Quran, as some people have taken it. So you cannot apply your own thought. You have to rely on the sacred writings. And this is where the problem lies. When you remove this natural faculty that God gave the human being, then you are causing people to stagnate. You are allowing people to just be stuck in one particular thinking. This is why a majority of the Middle East, for example, is still so behind when it comes to issues such as technology or education or such aspects. That's why it is so behind. The same thing can be seen in Africa. It's not like it's that Africa is all the talk. No, the same thing can be observed in Africa. When you have a lot of tradition just simply raining down, just completely stagnating society, when you have people clinging to tradition, this is where stagnation occurs within society. And of course, I am not praising the West and saying that they have no problems of their own. Of course they do. They certainly do. Anybody can see that. But their problems cannot be compared with the problems of the East, because the East's problems, all of them stem from the fact that they cannot be held accountable for their actions, because they always fall back on the Quran. When they say that what they're doing is backed up by God, when they take God as a solid structure upon which they can lean, then that makes them immovable. Okay, it makes the society not want to actually contend with them. It makes the people in the society not want to challenge them. When they say that they are the mouthpiece of God, for example, it makes it more difficult. It makes it such a challenge for other people to actually contend with this kind of notion. So other people see it as immoral or ungodly, for example, to challenge these kinds of readings that have crept into the Muslim world. But I am, of course, of the different opinion. I believe, namely, that the Quran does call for human thought and human intellect and human rationality. The deen of the Quran is based on reason and understand. It's based on reason and what is rational. It does not call for the irrational. It does not call for things that are against reason. One needs to understand that the Quran does not call for dogmatism. It does not. One needs to understand that. The Quran wanted to liberate people. The Quran wanted people to be free, wanted to remove these shackles that are around them. As it tells us, وَيَضَعُ عَنْهُمْ إِصْرَهُمْ وَالْأَغْلَالَ الَّتِي كَانَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ. That the Prophet's job and mission was to remove these shackles that are tied around people and to alleviate from them the burden that is upon them. So people were overburdened with traditions and cultures and practices, and the Prophet was meant to alleviate this burden and take it off them. This was the mission of the Prophet. But unfortunately, the world today has turned into this system where Islam is so oppressive when it comes to people. People have completely been subjugated into submission, not submission to God, but rather submission to these readings and these interpretations and these cultural practices. This is where Islam has now become. This is what Islam has become. It's no longer facilitable in our lives. We can no longer, incorporate it in our lives without getting ridiculed, without getting insulted or criticized by other people. Multiple people criticize us because of the way we practice the deen, because we don't carry like a long beard, or we don't wear such elongated garments, or we don't cover our hair, that we don't speak in such a way as Arabs speak. And unfortunately, this is what it has led to today, that people are completely blinded by these traditions and these practices and these norms, that they have completely left aside the Quran and they have decided to follow these other traditions. Now, that was a bit of a rant. I don't want to go into so much details about this, but I just wanted to give you a simple understanding of what kind of society we are living in today. I try to make you see and understand and try to prepare you for what we're going to be talking about when it comes to the Quran. See, because when we start talking about the Quran, one will notice that the message or the image that is portrayed within the Quran is completely contrary to what we see when we see what Muslims observe today. That the Quran intends to create a system, create a society in which such values such as justice and fairness and equality are the core values within society. Society where human beings are equal, a society where human beings can live free and in peace without people living in fear. What these people who tend to call for an Islamic totalitarian society, what they actually want is that people are living in complete fear, where women are not allowed to leave their homes except with their husband's permissions. Such rulings, such understandings, those are the understandings that these people have. Okay, and who wants to live in such a society like that? No, Allah created the human beings to be free, created the human beings to be free and to be liberated. The age of slavery is over. We want to only belong to Allah. That's it. We don't want to belong to people. We belong to Allah, and to Allah we will return. Okay? So I hope that you are able to understand, and I hope that you are able to follow along, and I hope that you will be able to follow along in the coming series about the Quran, when we try to go through the different verses and try to understand what it is that Allah intends for us as Muslims. If you're new to my channel, then of course subscribe and like this video and share it. May God be with all of you, and may He grant you a wonderful evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.